From the studios of Foxboro Cable Access, located in the center of Foxborough, Massachusetts, you are watching Around Foxborough.
Hi everyone, and welcome to this week's edition of Around Foxborough. I'm your host today, Jared Craig, and I'm joined today by Sarah MacIsaac and Kevin Lombardi. They are here to talk about the Climb to the Top benefit for multiple sclerosis that is going to happen at Gillette Stadium in just a few weeks. So thank you, Kevin, and thank you, Sarah, for being here. I so appreciate you. I was wondering if we could start by you could tell us a little bit about yourselves and how MS has come to affect your life. What is it? And a little bit of Climb to the Top. So we'll get to all that. First off, who are the two of you, and how are you tied into the Multiple Sclerosis Society?
Well, again, my name is Kevin Lombardi, and I'm a volunteer fundraiser for the Society. I've been active about 17 years. I can't even remember the number, but more than 10 years I've sat on the Board of Trustees, which is just an incredible honor. I got involved because MS has directly affected my family. Began with my mother. Now it's spread to 3 generations. And I have cousins on my mother's and my father's side that have been afflicted.
Wow. So both sides of your family
Yes.
have been affected. Great. Well, thank you so much for all the volunteer work you're doing. Really
Thanks for having
appreciate
us.
that. Yeah. And Sarah, how about yourself? I know you.
Yeah, so I'm a senior community engagement manager with the Society. So the work I do is to support those affected by MS. And I first came to this also because my mom lived with MS. And I have several other family members that are also living with this disease.
So you've both seen it firsthand. You know how important it is. What is multiple sclerosis, and how does one find out that they might have it?
Yeah, so MS is a disease of the central nervous system. So the brain, the optic nerve, which is the nerve behind your eye, and your spinal cord. So in MS, for whatever reason, and we're starting to get some answers for that, the cells attack the myelin. So if you picture a phone cord, that plastic sheath on the outside, that's your myelin. And on the inside, that cord that brings the electricity, consider that your nerve. So in MS, cells attack the myelin and cause inflammation and can disrupt the messaging from the nerve as it goes from the brain to your hands or to your feet or to other aspects that create the MS symptoms that people experience.
And so what do those symptoms look like? Constant pain in that nerve?
It can be spasticity, like a tightening of that muscle. It can be pain. It can be bladder and bowel. There can be cognitive challenges and symptoms. A lot of the MS symptoms, some of them are invisible. You cannot tell someone is experiencing it and dealing with it and trying to manage it. And sometimes for some individuals, as their MS progresses, it does become a little bit more visible. They may be using a walking stick or other devices to really continue to do everything they want safely while managing fatigue so that they can do everything that they want.
And
Yeah, and, and additionally, in my 17 years, I've seen some really advanced understanding and diagnosis of the disease. Because I believe my mother was probably not diagnosed until late. Today, I think the procedures and the understanding. I know it's a lot of the work is because of our volunteer and and our committed community in the MS Society that has really people tend to understand it and look for it, as opposed for waiting for something really bad to happen.
a more proactive approach rather than reactive.
Yeah, and diagnosis can be challenging. There's not a blood test to tell if someone has MS. It takes MRIs. It can take spinal taps.
Really?
Yes.
There's not a simple test right now.
Nope, and MS means multiple sclerosis, so scars happening within the nervous system. So you need to have more than one scar from more than one time. So as Kevin was talking about, a lot of people will experience symptoms that they may brush off or they may not hear the words MS at that point. Some hear clinically isolated syndrome, which is that first experience. But it takes time for MS to progress, for those multiple lesions to form, and for that diagnosis to actually happen for somebody.
Because it is an autoimmune disease, right? So the body's immune system is starting to fight the nervous system because it detects. I'm sorry, I'm totally guessing here, but this is just my basic research. So if it's an autoimmune disease, is there a way to combat it? There's no known cure right now.
No, we're working towards cures. There is, for that exacerbation that someone experiences, that sudden onset of symptoms that lasts for a couple of days to a couple of weeks, it's usually steroid treatments.
Okay.
That helps manage that inflammation and reduce it. Outside of that, MS is managed through disease-modifying therapies. So these could be infusions, it could be injections, it could be a pill. Depends on what that provider is working with their individual and what the best fit is for them. And that disease-modifying therapy, it doesn't negate the damage that's been done, but it prevents, if it works correctly, future lesions from occurring and future damage. So that's where symptomatic medications can help individuals deal with that fatigue or the pain or that spasticity from previous exacerbations.
Okay, that makes sense.
It's interesting. I mean, so you know somebody with MS, and I mean the information out there is not readily available, and it's not a cookie cutter approach to attacking the disease. So events like this allow us to actually communicate and kind of understand what people are thinking and how to communicate it to. I love the way you explained what it is, because I can't. I don't live with it. I just know people who have it and do my due diligence as a public citizen to help in any way I can. But it's a very confusing, again, a very misunderstood, disease. And when I started, our mission was to help people with MS. Now the mission is to find a cure.
That's awesome. Yeah. Okay, so that's a pretty significant change in 17 years then. It went from let's just help people because we don't know how to combat this to now there's an end in sight. It might be possible someday to find a cure. Can you talk a little bit about how that came to be?
Yeah, I certainly can. So at the National MS Society, as Kevin mentioned, our mission is to cure MS while empowering people affected by MS to live their best lives.
Love that.
So through our research,
so clear.
It's so clear. We have a pathways to cure element to our research right now that's looking at all of the different elements to what a cure could mean. A cure for someone living with MS for 20 years is undoing that damage and getting them back to where they were prior to MS being part of their lives. And for someone else, it could be never hearing the words, you have MS, and really understanding all of those elements. What are those environmental factors? What are those genetic factors? And how does that come together in that storm to result in an MS diagnosis? And how can we shift that pathway for people in the community? So we do a lot of research at the National MS Society. We're actually the largest funder of MS research.
Wow, great.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And is this, I want to get to the Climb to the Top fundraiser, but is that a main way that you fundraise, or is this a smaller fundraiser for you? How much of this?
Well, this is an emerging fundraiser. There are three really major campaigns, and we consider them endurance events. But some of them are easier than others. There's the walks all across the country. There's the MS Challenge Walk down Cape Cod, which is 50 miles over 3 days.
Wow.
There is the Cape Cod Getaway, which is a biking event, 150 miles in 2 days. And then there's the climb. Climb to the Top, which is, I would say it's more of a family event. It is somewhat challenging, but it's not a race. It's really an event, and it's a one-day event. It can be done fairly quickly, but also you can just go participate, sit down, and get up again and climb.
Cool.
It's really about bringing people together in a very favorable environment and help them understand how easy it is to contribute. And you don't have to contribute through money. I mean, there are volunteer opportunities. There are advocacy opportunities, because many times we have to petition the government for funding. So talking to your state senator or your legislator, is a part of the process. And I'll speak to it. I mean, I was ignorant to what involvement was when I started. I got into it to do one single event.
Yeah.
And I met so many incredible people. Our community is mostly volunteers, but it's an incredible community. And at the Climb to the Top, you get to meet those people.
Cool. That's really great. It seems like a great way to introduce the video that you folks have brought. So we'll take a minute right now. We'll watch that awesome video. So it's a little bit about what people can expect to see at these events, and we saw a bunch of different venues. This one's going to be held at Gillette Stadium. It's such an exciting event. I mean, even just for people to be able to get into the stadium, probably, right? Is there a lot of energy on those days, those climb days?
Yeah, and you could do it individually, or you can build a team. Yeah. And I tend to lean towards the teams. It's a family event. My children, participate. My wife, my sister. And it's a commitment. It's a time together, it's a time where we, kind of smile and enjoy what we're doing. And in a role as a volunteer, we try to recruit as many people as possible. That's why this Foxborough event is really important. I mean, who gets to see the inside of the stadium?
Right.
I'm not saying running down a flight of stairs is the best way to have a good time. But we have a lot of fun after the fact, and I think you have access to the lighthouse.
Oh, cool. They're going to open that up for the day?
Yep.
Great.
And it's a very relaxed environment. And the great thing is we don't discuss who has and who doesn't have MS. We discuss, the day, the weather, really just plain dialogue.
Cool.
And again, it's, for me as a volunteer, it kind of justifies the time and energy that I put into it, and it's exceptionally rewarding.
Great. And what about you, Sarah? What is that day like for you? Are you in the trenches getting things ready? Do you get to participate?
So as a staff person, we do have a lot of staff on site that day, and it's really experiencing it. It's a lot of orange. Orange is the society's color, so it's very bright.
Great.
You add that to a sunny day with the blue skies and just the ambiance of Gillette, and it's super fun. As Kevin mentioned, we have tons of volunteers that come. We can't do what we do without our volunteers. They are the manpower that turns events into magic.
Cool.
They are there to help with registration. They're there to cheer people on as they go up and down the stairs, and really just providing answers, providing directions to whatever that individual may need, and really making sure that those that are participating have that support to really enjoy their day and do amazing things for us.
That's who we work with. They would never talk about themselves. Our staff is phenomenal. And it's great to see a true functioning 501c3.
Yeah.
Okay, and they're exceptionally creative, and their knowledge base is extraordinary. When we build teams, it's often we invite a staff member, because it does. Sometimes it doesn't resonate what you're raising money for.
Yeah.
But when they see the staff engagement with the community involvement, it's exceptional. And in my honor to be a trustee, I mean, my colleagues are some of the best human beings I've ever met. Very successful business people, some of them. Some are just regular people like myself. But we really, when we get together, it's not about what kind of car you drive or where you live.
Yeah.
Because the mission to us all is the same.
Yep.
No amount of money is going to cure the disease, but the effort and campaign behind what we do will.
And advocacy and all those pieces that we've talked about.
And I knew nothing about that. I will be honest with you. I was completely ignorant to what these organizations need to be successful. I've learned so much over the past 17 years. You couldn't go to school to learn this stuff. You have to experience it.
So what got you involved in the first place?
It's my family.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I've learned that I think we all need to contribute somehow. And this is my cause. Cool. But if somebody can learn something about our cause and it moves them to participate, in somebody else's cause, then that's what we do.
Great. And how did you get involved? Were you a runner, a climber?
I was a challenge walker. So years ago, I was encouraged to do this silly little walk down in Cape Cod. I had no knowledge of what was going to happen. I had the wrong sneakers, and I walked up to the desk, and somebody asked me, "What's your team?" Well, the team was Lombardi Party of One.
Just you.
Just me. And it grew. We grew. I met more and more people with MS. I became a little bit more visible. So people started asking me, how can you help me? Which was, I'm not a clinician.
Yeah.
And you're going to talk about the Navigator. The MS Society has this great program, the MS Navigator.
Cool.
That we direct people to who have need to understand what services, if any, are available to them. And Sarah, can you talk about that?
Yeah, so our MS navigators, they're available to talk and support anybody affected by MS. So it's not just the person living with that MS diagnosis or maybe going through that diagnosis process. It could be family members, it could be friends, it could be professionals who really want to make sure they have the skills and resources to support those that they're seeing as patients.
And so is a navigator a person or?
Yep, these are some of my colleagues here at the Society. So anyone can call our 800 number or visit our website to connect with a navigator. And our navigators can provide referral resources to local providers. They can provide information on upcoming programs and ways to get involved. They can share information on local self-help groups and how individuals can connect with others in the MS community. Wow. So our navigators, they have quite the wealth of information available at their fingertips to provide not only national resources that could support somebody, but also those localized resources. And who are those providers and who are those agencies and communities that individuals can really tap into to have the most robust support that they can access.
And so this is because you're nationwide, you're a national MS society.
Yes.
People on all corners of the country have access to this.
Absolutely.
Resource.
And we're a national organization, but we're also a local organization too.
Local to Boston?
Yes, our local office is in Waltham, and we cover all of Massachusetts, New Hampshire, Vermont, and Maine.
Fantastic.
So we have staff scattered throughout those 4 states, providing support and resources, doing local events like Kevin was talking about. We have bike events in Maine and Massachusetts. We have walk events in all 4 states that are coming up this spring. Climb is a really unique opportunity. It's one of 3 in the country, and we have it here, similar to Challenge Walk. It's one of 3 in the country. And they're happening here in our community, which is wonderful.
And that's why we're getting people to engage in this. We want this, I see this as being something we can do in more cities. Again, community engagement, family engagement, somewhat of some sort of comprehension for what the disease does. And my greatest honor was, one of my colleagues called me a caregiver. I am not a clinician. I have a certain skill set. I'm in sales, so I understand what it takes to recruit, and raise some money. Yeah. I'm by no means a professional in that area, but I had to think about when somebody said that to me, because I don't physically care for people, but the stuff that we're doing supports people who do.
That's great, yeah, and we need people like that, right?
I think most of us are like this.
Yeah, I do too.
You know what I mean? I like to think so, that most of us are like this, because if you have a friend who asks you for help, you're going to provide it.
Absolutely, yep, it's a great point. Sarah, you've talked a few times about resources that the National MS Society provides. What are those resources? Because I hear money, but is it money? Is it wheelchairs and walkers that you've mentioned before?
Yep, so through all those fundraising events we talk about, that is what supports our mission. That supports our MS Navigator program for people across the country. Within that program, it can include case management, providing one-on-one case managers to assist. That's not billable to that individual. The Society provides that as a service.
Yeah.
In addition to that, we do educational programs in the community. We work with our trusted providers that are out there to bring education into the community. We do large virtual summits each year. We have a Black MS Summit. That's a 2-day event that is a virtual summit for those that are within the Black community that are living with MS, because their diagnosis tends to be even more challenged than the regular diagnosis.
Is there research and studies around why that is?
For a long time, it was thought that MS was just a disease of Eastern European ancestry.
Okay.
It affects mostly those that are 20 to 50, so young adults. And for some populations, such as our Black MS population and our Hispanic and Latinx population, MS was not on the radar for providers. So there was a lot of misdiagnosis or non-diagnosis or dismissal of symptoms. So these virtual summits really allow us to use providers and language and cultural support for these communities, while really highlighting the supports that exist for them to get care that is for them and not for somebody else. That really allows them to be seen and be heard and builds community too. So they're wonderful events. Those are virtual. But then locally, we work with providers to do local events using similar information and similar themes to really provide opportunities for people to connect.
So when you have a national society like this, you're able to focus big and focus small and try to catch everyone in between those?
Yeah, provide virtual opportunities as well as those in-person opportunities. Another example is our New to MS program for those that are new to MS and are just getting started and want to get accurate information and start to learn about resources and ways to connect with others.
Yeah, Google's a dangerous place.
It can be, yes. And then also I have the privilege of working with our peer connection volunteers across the country. So we have MS Friends that provide one-on-one phone support. So these are trained volunteers.
Awesome.
We also have a self-help group network that provides that opportunity to connect with others for that group conversation. So those groups could be virtual or in person. Here in Foxborough, we have one that meets in person right over at the library. So it's a wonderful resource happening right here in town. We have another group based out of Mansfield that is a care partner group that is actually providing support to care partners down the East Coast and has really extended their net by providing that virtual connection. So again, really providing opportunity for the community to come together, to meet each other, to not feel isolated, to learn from each other as well as learn from experts.
Cool. So the MS Climb at Gillette all the money raised goes to support all of these things.
Exactly.
Great.
Goes right to our mission.
What's your goal for the day? Do you have a fundraising goal for the day? Does your team have a goal, Kevin?
So I believe it's $250 per climber.
Okay.
We're actually encouraging young people. I believe if you're under 16 or under, it's $100.
Oh, nice.
And
bring the family.
Yeah,
like
my family has been involved, for a long time, and it's not difficult to do something good for somebody else. I can't stress that enough. Yeah. So the goal really is just to participate. If you can't climb, come and volunteer, or just come and watch. Because I guarantee, if you go watch, you're going to want to do it. That happens so often.
Cool.
Again, it's a real no pressure, low key event with a lot of smiles, at the event. So I mean, I don't know how more I could express, the understanding of the campaign, but some of us do have goals. We like to show that it can be done, but as a large teammate and member, if my team is on the top, I would love somebody to surpass me.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Right. That's the nature of competition.
Yeah.
Making it more fun and benefiting all. Right.
Yeah, it's motivation.
Yeah. Well, you reminded me of this thing that I read recently about how in time travel movies, people always say, don't do anything, even a small thing could have a big impact on the present, so don't do it. But no one ever talks about doing something small today that'll have a big impact on the future. And this feels like something that, it sounds small right now, but it's going to have a big impact on your organization. So I hope it's a very successful event. I hope that you continue to do more of these. Is it an annual event? Are we going to see more of them in the future?
This is our 15th year for Climb to the Top.
Great. At Foxborough? At Gillette?
We've been at Gillette for the last 3 years. So post-pandemic, we shifted from a skyscraper in town to Gillette.
An unnamed skyscraper in town. Great. When is the climb, and how can people at home donate?
Sure.
It's May 19th.
May 19th.
It's a Sunday morning. And if you go to the National MS Society, Greater New England chapter, or you can, I think if you just Google Climb to the Top Boston, it'll get you there.
Yeah, that's how I found the website. So yeah, it's out there. It's easy to find.
It is easy to find.
Yeah.
And then sign up a team.
Can folks still register?
Absolutely.
When's the deadline?
I believe, we can take registrants that day of. If you pre-register, you can access some fundraising support from the society. You can also register your team. We do have a thermometer on our Climb to the Top page where you can see how fundraising is going for some of those teams that Kevin talked about, as well as some individuals. So there is that motivation if you're a competitive person to see kind of what that's looking like. But it's a great opportunity. On our website, you can learn more. You can learn about registration times, how the event is run, what you can expect that day.
Great.
Also, crucial information like parking and where to access us in Gillette. We all know Gillette has multiple entrances and parking. It's all on the website, and registrants can easily access all of that.
Fantastic. One question I have before we leave, I meant to ask earlier. How many people are affected by MS? Do you have that stat?
The prevalence rate is there's 1 million people in the U.S. living with MS.
Just in the U.S.?
Just in the U.S.
Wow.
And it's a prevalence number. It's non-reportable, so just like we talked about with diagnosis, the challenges that come with that, the prevalence number is based on what we do know and what we can expect within society for that, but that's just here in the U.S.
Okay. Wow.
And nobody's running around saying, I have MS.
Right.
So I'm sure it's greater than that. Because as you said, I mean, the more I get involved, the more people I find that have this disease. Mm-hmm. And, it's really unknown at this point.
Well, let's find a cure then, and let's do everything we can to do it. So I wish you both a lot of luck. I hope the event's a huge success, and I hope you'll come back and tell us about it again next year.
Yeah, thank you.
This was great.
Awesome. Kevin, Sarah, thank you so much for being here. I want to thank, before we leave, our Executive Director, Michael Weber, our Director, Paul Beck, our Producer, Jury Love, and our Editor, Fanny Mizerambe. I've been your host today, Jared Craig. I was joined by Kevin Lombardi and Sarah MacIsaac from the National MS Society. Thank you both so much for being here, and good luck with the climb Boston.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.